Monday, September 17th, 2018, in Ames, Iowa, United States. The weather was warm and clear that morning. Celia Barquin, a Rosamina, 22, decided to go to Coldwater Golf Lens Club to play golf before her university classes. On the way, she had a conversation with her mother. The woman, as if sensing something wrong, asked her daughter if everything was okay and safe on the course, to which Celia confidently answered yes. The girl was sure she was perfectly safe. There were many people around, but unfortunately, there are no absolutely safe places, and soon the talented athlete became the victim of a heinous crime. Celia was born July 6, 1996, in Point San Miguel, a village in Cantabria in northern Spain, where 8 generations of their family have lived. She moved to Iowa thanks to an athletic golf scholarship. Celia was faced with a large choice of universities offering her tuition as a talented athlete. But among all the cities, she chose Ames, Iowa, with a population of 65,000. It was quiet, cozy, and reminded her of her hometown in Spain. Of course, at that moment she did not know that this choice would be fatal, and this town would be her last refuge. Celia had a great relationship with her family who stayed in her homeland. Her parents, Mariam Aruzamena and Marcos Barquin, had 2 children, Celia and Andres. The girl's father was a butcher, and her mother was a salesman in a clothing store. But after the birth of children, she became a housewife, engaged in the upbringing of children and household chores. The family was not rich, they lived modestly, but they were friendly and strong. Children were their priority, and their mother and father made every effort to ensure that they received a good education and settled down in life. Andres went to law school, and Celia, who was a successful golfer, won a scholarship to the United States. Her love of golf was instilled in her by her mother, who loved the sport. As a child, Celia was much smaller than other girls her age, so she had to adapt and use certain techniques to win. When the girl grew up, she was petite and worked tirelessly on her game considering her short stature. She dreamed of becoming a professional and successful golfer, but not to become popular. She was desperate to succeed in the sport to make life easier for her parents. The girl constantly talked about how she wanted to buy them a house and take care of them. For this purpose, Celia practiced a lot to get good results. Having received many titles and awards, she won victories in various competitions. Celia won the European Women's Amateur Championship in Slovenia in June 2018, finished second in the women's team golf competition in Europe, was the 2018 Confederation Big 12 Women's Golf Champion in the United States, and the 2018 Iowa State Athlete of the Year. There were high hopes for her, and the girl was prophesied to have a great future. When Celia moved to the United States, her relationship with her family did not change. She communicated with her parents every day, sometimes even 4 or 5 times a day when she had free time. Celia missed her family very much. The obligatory ritual was an evening call before going to bed to say goodnight to each other and share successes of the day. During vacations, the girl would come to visit her family in Spain. Even on vacation in her home country, the girl continued to train hard to improve her skills. Her mother supported her daughter's passion and often trained with her. Celia was well settled in Iowa. She lived with her boyfriend, Carlos Negri Nabalanes, in a rented apartment. Their relationship has its own interesting history. When Celia and Carlos met at the university, the girl was dating another guy at that time, and Carlos fell in love with her at first sight. Her charming smile, piercing gaze, cheerfulness and kindness won his heart, and purposeful character and perseverance caused great respect. Carlos had to accept the fact that she was not with him, but he became her best friend who always supported the girl. For over a year, he put his shoulder to his friend's side until she became disillusioned with her boyfriend and broke up with him. Carlos finally confessed his feelings after another walk together, and Celia pulled him by his shirt, kissed him, and without saying a word, just drove away in a car. The guy was so happy that she reciprocated him that he just ran and screamed around the dormitory from happiness. That's how their romance began. To celebrate the beginning of the relationship, Carlos even set off fireworks to wow the girl and sent her a video where he confessed that she was incredible and 1 in a billion. After that, they were inseparable, and after some time they moved in together and started living together. Lately, their conversations were filled with dreams about the wedding venue and even the names of their future children. They were already engaged and were preparing for the main event in their lives. In May 2017, Carlos earned a college degree and got a job at an engineering firm in Ames. Celia was in her last semester at Iowa State University, also majoring in civil engineering. After finishing her athletic career, the girl dreamed of becoming an engineer and benefiting people. And she also wanted to prove that women could be successful in construction too. Celia studied well in her specialty and proved by her example the success of women in this business. The girl had a lot of friends. She liked to surprise everyone with delicious Spanish dishes, which she cooked well. Among the university students, a video of Celia tossing a Spanish omelet, it flips in the air, and then she adds butter to it, and it bursts like a fireball. This incredible trick was constantly asked to repeat by her friends, and she performed it masterfully. Celia traditionally spent the summer of 2018 in Spain with her family, and returned to Iowa to graduate. The promising athlete was a member of the Iowa State women's golf team at the time, and also competed as an individual. She was soon to travel to a new competition, for which she was actively preparing. But these plans were not destined to come true. Her would-be assassin was already looking for a victim and preparing for an attack. When Celia arrived at the golf club on that ill-fated day of September 17, 2018, she had finished talking to her mother. The staff knew the famous athlete well. The staff informed the girl that 15 older men had arrived from Des Moines and would also be playing golf at 8:45. The group was sent to the starting line to where the first 4 holes were located. Celia saw them arrive in golf carts and begin to play. A group of retirees motioned for the girl to go forward and begin play. Celia went there with her cart, playing the first hole, then moving on to number 4 so as not to delay the elderly men. The group of seniors described her as polite and friendly. Celia then headed to the 7th hole. This location was not popular because it was far from the other holes and bordered Squaw Creek Park, which had dense vegetation. Athletes were reluctant to play there because it was sometimes home to unauthorized park visitors and even aggressive homeless people. But Celia didn't frequent this club and didn't know about it, so she went there. To get to the 9th hole, players cross a bridge and a wide path and then go through a section of woods. According to one of the coaches, it was an eerie place, similar to Sleepy Hollow. Celia headed that way. Later, a group of 15 people approached that area at about 10:30 a.m. The cart with Celia's belongings was still there, but the girl herself wasn't there. While the group was playing on the field, they noticed an oddity. The athlete never showed up in 10 minutes. This was troubling, so they decided to get closer to her cart and look for the girl. As they got closer, they saw her t-shirt, baseball cap, and some other things were scattered on the field, and her phone was on the cart. It looked like some things had accidentally fallen out of her pocket. But why the t-shirt was lying around, and why Celia had left her phone behind, was unclear. They searched the area nearby but did not see anyone there. They then contacted the club management and reported the disturbing discovery. The group described that they had seen a blonde, pretty young girl playing golf there earlier, but now she was missing and her belongings were still there. The arriving staff realized it was Celia and began searching for the missing girl. After less than half an hour of searching, they saw a body floating in the blood pond near the 9th hole. That's when the staff called the police. After retrieving the body from the water, police officers identified her. It was the reigning European champion, Celia Barquin. Celia had been stabbed several times in the neck and torso. A search dog immediately picked up the trail and led police officers to a tent in a wooded area of Squaw Creek Park. However, the tent was empty, and there was blood in the tent. The police officers assumed that a homeless man was living there and had probably attacked the girl. They went in search of the man. The police searched the area to the tent. A guy came up. He said he lived here and just wanted to get his tent. His name was Colin Richards. He was also 22 years old like Celia, but they were diametric opposites. The police realized he was behind the murder. His whole face was scratched. In the black backpack he had with him, they found bloody clothes, a t-shirt and shorts, which he had changed into clean clothes. Search dogs also reacted to his odor. There was a deep gash on his left arm from which blood was oozing, but he tried to cover it up and hid his arm from police officers. Based on all of this, Colin Richards was taken into custody by police. According to him, before law enforcement arrived, Colin was at a friend's house. 2 male acquaintances brought him to the park to retrieve his tent. When he went to retrieve it, he saw police. The boyfriend denied involvement in the crime and claimed he had never seen Celia. He attributed the scratches on his face to the fact that he scratched his face with branches as he was making his way through a wooded area. Colin was known to police for his abuse of illegal substances, alcohol, and mental health problems. He became homeless after he got out of prison 3 months before the murder. The guy had served about 7 months in jail for burglary. He had previously been convicted several times for similar offenses and had a long history of trouble with the law. Colin grew up in a dysfunctional family and had been known to police since he was a teenager. Detectives spoke to 3 men who were acquaintances of his. With one of the homeless men, Colin shared a tent, and the other 2 men gave him a ride from his home to the park. The owner of the house allowed him to wash and change his clothes, as Colin was disheveled, covered in mud, blood, sand, and water. The guy washed up, changed his clothes, and left with his bloody clothes in a black backpack to go back to the park to get his tent. Next, he planned to leave the area. According to the men, Colin was acting unusual that day, was extremely nervous, and in a hurry to leave. He did not say what was the reason for his sudden decision. He only said that he had cut himself badly and soiled his clothes. Another homeless man who lived with him in a tent in the park said Colin always carried a serrated knife with him, which he used for domestic issues. Just a day before the murder, Colin told the friend that he had a desire to rape and kill someone, but the man didn't take his words seriously. Colin was charged with first-degree murder. Right after the girl's body was found, investigators believed the crime was premeditated. He had planned to kill someone and was on the lookout for the victim that day. The judge set bail at $5 million, but Colin, of course, didn't have that kind of money, so he remained in custody until his trial. Meanwhile, Celia's family in Spain knew nothing about these tragic events, but they were very worried because the girl had not called them or responded to their calls and messages. Police officers in Ames tried to contact their colleagues in Point San Miguel and embassy personnel in Madrid to relay the terrible news to Celia's family. But it was past midnight in Spain, and no one was at work. No one was answering the phone. So the coach of the murdered had to make the hardest phone call of his life. After several hours of silence, the parents learned that their daughter had been brutally murdered. Later, a serrated knife was found in a wooded area, which had fingerprints and DNA of the homeless man. Also, blood of the deceased under the victim's fingernails were particles of Colin's skin, so it was possible to prove that these scratches were inflicted on him, not by branches, but by the deceased. Despite the fact that the homeless man initially denied his guilt, later, under the pressure of evidence, he admitted that he was guilty. He said that he had taken substances that day and was not thinking clearly. The guy was walking in the woods and saw a beautiful young girl who was in that spot all alone. He decided she was the perfect victim. Colin had never seen or known her before. Celia was the accidental victim of his furious attack. The death penalty has been abolished in the state of Iowa since 1965. He therefore faced a maximum sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Colin's family showed up at the trial and gave an account of his life. His parents were never married or even living together when he was born. Colin spent the first 10 years of his life with his father, who raised him harshly. He would send his young son to bed alone and go to the bar himself. Only his grandparents took care of him. The mother then contested custody and took her son in with her. At that time, she had already married another man and had 2 more children. They lived in the countryside, as the parents felt it was more peaceful there. There was strict discipline in the family, and Colin's room was so spotless that the family joked that he should join the army. The boy studied diligently at school, but as a teenager, he became close to his drunkard father, and he began to have behavioral problems. His father tried to re-educate Colin, but he did not listen, so he was kicked out of the house at the age of 15. So he got involved with bad company, dropped out of school, became addicted to alcohol and illegal substances. When Colin was 18 years old, he had a girlfriend who was twice his age. In May 2015, he was arrested for domestic violence against her. The boyfriend was found guilty and sentenced to 60 days in jail. Another time when he was accused of shoplifting, he threatened to go back and shoot up the place. Colin's life spiraled out of control, but no one seemed to pay attention in the 2 years that followed the domestic violence case. He was repeatedly arrested for theft, harm, harassment, and attempted burglary. He was sent to undergo behavioral intervention courses, but it didn't help. In November 2017, Colin was incarcerated at Mount Pleasant Correctional Facility for 2 years for burglary, as well as a probation violation. Despite disciplinary problems, including fights with other inmates, he was released on parole after just 7 months in June 2018 because the prison was running out of space. Just 3 months later, he killed Celia. After leaving prison, Colin was met by his mother and stepfather, with whom he lived. They resumed their relationship when the guy was behind bars and corresponded. His parents believed in Colin and gave him a chance for a normal life, taking his word that he would not use illegal substances and stop communicating with old friends from a bad company. But 2 weeks later, he was kicked out of his home for not keeping his promise. Colin headed to Ames, which was an hour away from his home. For a while, he found refuge in the city's only homeless shelter, but there weren't enough beds. He asked his mother for help, and she bought him a tent. In his new city, he quickly came to the attention of the Ames Police Department. On June 29th, he was arrested for public drunkenness. On August 11, police received a complaint from a Target store that Colin and another homeless man were camping in an open lot behind the store and were chased away. They then camped in Squaw Creek Park so as not to disturb anyone. According to Colin, the police themselves allowed them to camp there, but this is denied by the police representatives, and they reply that overnight camping in the park is prohibited and no one advised him to break the law. On September 2nd, 15 days before Celia's murder, police were called to Burger King. There, Colin threatened customers with his knife, but was released. On September 8th, his mother and stepfather came to Ames to celebrate Colin's 22nd birthday. They took him to dinner and to the laundromat to wash his clothes. The mother was alarmed by his demeanor. Colin was taciturn and aloof, mumbling one-word answers to their questions. They dropped him off at a tent in the park where he was living with another homeless man and drove home. That's when he confessed to his friend that he wanted to rape and kill the woman. The next morning, Celia was dead, but she had not been raped. According to the police, he probably didn't have time to do it. Colin's parents claimed it was his own fault. They tried to help him, but it was no use. He still sided with evil. As a result, Colin received a life sentence without the possibility of parole on August 23, 2019. He is serving his sentence at the Story County Jail in Nevada, Iowa. The entire town of Ames mourned Celia's death. Thousands gathered for a candlelight farewell ceremony to honor the talented athlete. Celia's family was shocked by the news of their daughter's murder. They were outraged that a lowlife who had achieved nothing in life and aspired to nothing had so cruelly taken the life of a talented and promising athlete who had a great future ahead of her. Colin certainly didn't value Celia's life in any way. He had chosen her at random that day and killed her because he had a strong desire to do so, and she was the right one. The family of the deceased was pleased with the verdict, and the fact that the perpetrator was found quickly and was unable to harm anyone else. Now he will never be able to go free. They only regret letting their daughter go so far away, even though it was her dream. Statistically, the US is not safe. The per capita murder rate in the US is 26 times higher than Spain, whereas in their small town in Spain, the last murder was 100 years ago. All to blame, the family believes, is the widespread availability of illegal substances, which are literally at every turn, and this has led to an increase in violence. Her parents have kept Celia's room exactly as she left it, with one notable addition: an engineering degree posthumously awarded by the state of Iowa. They often stroll through the local golf club and remember when their daughter took her first steps in the sport here. The community of the small town of Ames, including the university administration and students, were outraged by this crime. Particularly outraged was the fact that the golf course bordered a wooded area and had no fencing. As a result of the golf club's negligence, the girl's life was put in danger. As it turned out, this was not the first murder case in that neighborhood. In 2008, a stabbing broke out in which one man was killed and the homeless assailant was found guilty of murder. It is unknown if measures were taken by the golf club to ensure the safety of players on holes 7 and 9. Celia's boyfriend, Carlos, after the death of his beloved, could not stay in this city, where everything around him reminded him of her. Carlos moved to Florida. His further fate is unknown. Celia's brother lost a lot of weight because of the news of her death, experiencing stress. After receiving a law degree, he decided to get a job in the police force to help other people. This was encouraged by his sister, who clued him into his purpose. Share your opinion in the comments, and also put likes if you found this story interesting. But also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.